Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another predictions video, and in today's video I'm going to be predicting the Bohachuk versus Ortiz Jr. fight. And so if you're new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. Like video if you do indeed like video, and let's get straight into it. So going into this fight, Bohachuk is 24-1 with 23 KOs, and Ortiz Jr. is 21-0 with 21 KOs. This fight's for the WBC interim world super welterweight title. Ortiz Jr.'s asked for a win via KO in round 1 versus Delorme, and Bohachuk's asked for a win via unanimous decision versus Mendoza. This is in Ortiz Jr.'s home country of America. They are both, as I've just said, percentage-wise known as KO artists. Bohachuk's loss came via TKO in round 8 versus Adams in 2021. And to speak a bit more about what I've just been saying, like I say, this interim title on the line, it's Bohachuk's, from what I believe, title in which he won against Mendoza. From, like I say, what I believe, it's Ortiz Jr. Moving up in weight as well, and fighting at a high level now at this weight, and it's a good fight. It's going to be an interesting fight, I'm sure, and Bohachuk is kind of making a bit of a name for himself at the moment. I mean, he's coming off that nice fight versus Mendoza in which he was put on a big stage on a PBC card and he had to deliver, and Mendoza was looking good and was coming into with a little bit of momentum. I believe that was fresh off the Fundora win, which is a really big one for him. But Bohachuk did really well to just pretty much just put on the pressure and just overwhelm him and just outwork him and just really land continuous big heavy shots every time he got the chance. And Ortiz Jr., this could be arguably the toughest test he's had to face yet. He's obviously been made with fights with guys who you probably would say would be at a similar level or something like that. I mean, that Stanionis fight I thought would have been an excellent fight, and that obviously was rearranged 2-3 times. And then also the Zoo fight, which then got pulled. That's not anything to do with Ortiz's fault, but at that same time, you kind of perhaps think that Ortiz Jr. has fought these guys and has been fighting at the highest of levels. He hasn't really. I mean, the past two guys he's fought especially really haven't been that special opponents. They've all kind of been gatekeeper type fighters, and obviously he's made light work of them, and that's what you wanted to see him doing, and it's been really impressive that he's been able to do that. But at the same time, Bohachuk's not going to be as easy as what I believe as what he's just had with Delorme and before that Lawson, I believe. And so I think this is going to be a very tough test for him, and it's going to be a good fight. Like I say, both high KO percentages, in which in general it's going to make probably the styles gel and make it entertaining. Obviously, Bohachuk has that stoppage defeat on his resume. It was a fight in which he was doing quite well, and he probably could have gone on to go and win, but he just got a bit too greedy and wanted to do a bit too much and came in a bit too quickly and just got caught, and then he wasn't able to kind of recover after that. And yeah, I mean, credit to Adams for being able to take advantage of that, but at the same time, I think Bohachuk has improved from then and is and has made himself defensively more aware since then to not put himself in quite as bad of positions. But in general, like I say, this fight is going to most definitely be a very entertaining one. And of course, with Golden Boy, there's not that many big names with them at the moment, and so this could be he could be one of the biggest names for Golden Boy, Ortiz Jr. So they really don't want him to be going out and losing, but this does spell a huge fight for probably whoever wins after everything that's happened with Terence Crawford as of recent, since His Excellency has said that he doesn't want to make the fight between Crawford and Canelo anymore. It kind of means that Crawford's going to be staying at super welterweight and probably having a couple fights at other guys around the division. So obviously super welterweight, this one, and is also floating around as well. So there's definitely big fights that can be made if, of course, whoever wins this one. So we'll have to wait and see. But also on this card, a couple of fights in which I want to speak about, a couple of women's fights in which I think are going to be interesting. And so, starting off with Brockhouse versus Cornejo for the WBC interim World Super Welterweight title, in which I think Cornejo will win via unanimous decision. I fully believe in that. Brockhouse was an excellent fighter in her day, and the run that she went on and the champion in which she was very impressive. But at the same time, from her last performance against Terry Harper, she hasn't fought in a year since then, so that's to say something. And she's 42 now, and she looked quite slow. And in that fight, she looked quite slow. She looked like she wasn't really wanting to fight at a high pace. She looked like the shots weren't really flowing, the footwork wasn't smooth or anything like that really, and it did look in general like she was just slowing down. And I mean, Terry Harper really could have done a lot more to be able to win that fight, and I thought it was a really poor performance from her as well. But Cornejo, she's not really known for being an amazingly brilliant fighter who can fight at the top level and will win world championships, and got absolutely outclassed versus Clarissa Shields. But coming down in weight, she's the younger fighter. She's coming off a couple wins herself now and has been the more active out of the two. And in general, I think that Cornejo will just be able to outpoint her, just be able to throw more, land more, and be more comfortable fighting at a high pace than that of Brockhouse. And in general, that's going to spell out for a Cornejo win. And then also on this card is Fundora versus Asensio for the IBF World Flyweight title, in which I think Fundora will win via unanimous decision. I think Fundora is really improving with every fight. When you look at some of the fights, even just like early last year or 2022, she was really looking quite like she looks like she has the strength and she's comfortable in the throwing combinations, but I think the fundamentals were just a little bit off, and I think defensively, footwork wise as well, she just looked uncomfortable at times. And maybe that was expected with the height in which she is, and just the way that she throws her punches as well a little bit at times. But I think in general she is improving and becoming a bit more of a complete fighter, maybe working out what type of a fighter she wants to be. And she's definitely becoming a name to kind of mess with in the flyweight division, and it's going to be interesting to see when she does fight and have won the champions, how she kind of deals with it, like an Alanese or somebody like that. But for the moment, Asensio, I don't think Asensio is anything crazy as a fighter. I think she'll want to be on the inside, so that might be a test for Fundora, but at the same time, she's a lot slower, a lot messier. I think if Fundora can move and be comfortable on the back foot, then she could win unanimously easily. I don't think she's going to be able to stop Asensio like she has been a few of her more recent opponents, but like I say, I think it'd be a comfortable unanimous decision victory for her. Going back to the main event though, we're going to start off by talking about Bohachuk as a fighter, and mainly kind of going off that last performance against Mendoza, because it was his standout performances, it was his like I say, toughest test. And so in general, he's a pressure fighter. I think he beats you down. He, like I say, is a very good finisher, and obviously he didn't manage to finish Mendoza, but that's because Mendoza is incredibly tough. You have to give that to him. But he's not got that kind of one-punch knockout power in which Ortiz Jr. has, and so it's a lot more of a beat down and a work rate beat down, and a high pace work rate beat down when he gets you up against the ropes and gets you on the back foot. And it's going to be interesting to see how Ortiz can deal with being on the back foot. I think Delorme before their fight said that Ortiz Jr. was really not comfortable on the back foot, and then he was going to try and get him on there. Obviously he didn't manage to do that, but somebody like Bohachuk might be able to do that. And is Ortiz Jr. uncomfortable on the back foot? I'm not too sure, but we'll have to wait and see. I think he fights best in close, Bohachuk. I think he has a good jab, but a lot of his work's best in close, but he doesn't really seem to smother too much, which is nice. He makes you work. He's got consistent power punching in his combinations that he throws. It seems like all his punches, pretty much bar his jab, I think he uses his jab to set up nicely, but then any kind of other bigger shots he throws are consistently throwing with a lot of power. He seems to have a good chin at the same time. Like I say, he kind of does stand right in front of you a lot of the time, so he does have to take shots, and maybe counters against Ortiz Jr. might be too much for him, but he does seem to be able to have a good chin at the same time. He pushes you back, he lets his hands go. He has a typically quite a high guard a lot of the time. Sometimes maybe that drops, but Ortiz Jr. also has quite a high guard. But I suppose the difference between the two of their guards, I think Ortiz Jr. maybe opens up a little bit more when he's trying to be the aggressive, and that can cause openings and problems for Ortiz Jr.'s defence. But Bohachuk, I think, can be quite open to the body, and Ortiz Jr. goes to the body excellently, so that could be a problem for Bohachuk. He finds gaps well, Bohachuk, and in general, like I say, it's going to be an interesting attacking fight. I think it's two attacking, typically quite attacking fighters. Negatives about him, I think he can overcommit to his work and can be quite wide with his shots at times, so he can be countered because of accuracy of not always being on point. He can be timed coming in at points. He's there to be hit, like I mentioned, and you don't really want to be there just kind of stood in front of Ortiz Jr. I think Ortiz Jr. has showed that now. He's slower, and that's a really key factor, I think. I think he's a lot slower, and I think his footwork is worse than that of Ortiz Jr. He can get a bit too comfortable at times, like I mentioned. I feel like that was probably the main reason why he did too much and lost in the first place and got caught with a shot back in 2021 when he lost, because I think he did just get too comfortable. But also at the same time, Ortiz Jr., I'll speak about him in a moment. He headhunts a bit at times. Bohachuk didn't really see him go to the body much at all against Mendoza. I don't think deals with movers quite as well, because I think the speed, he doesn't really deal with speed that well. I think Ortiz Jr. can move well, but he doesn't always utilise it really that well. He can just stand and trade in front of you at the same time. So interesting to see what kind of version of Ortiz Jr. we get. I think he doesn't really adjust his angle or pivot around you much when he's in front of you. Like I say, he's very much a stationary target in front of you, and he can also stand straight on as well to become an even bigger target in front of you. Ortiz Jr. is a fighter though. I think he does pick his punches excellently. I believe at the start of fights particularly, he's patient and picks his shots very nicely, and that's why I think he can get a lot of them early stoppages, in which he does. Has that aggressive side of him, which, like I say, does really come out into throughout the fight. And whenever he gets caught with shots, that aggressive nature comes. It's not always the best, but it can also provide stoppages, and probably is one of the main reasons why he's been able to go through so many fighters like he's been able to. He's got great body work, like I mentioned. Bohachuk, like I mentioned, does seem possibly open to the body, and I think Mendoza did land a couple of good body shots against him. He doesn't have to land clean to be able to knock you out. He has that power to be able to not, like I say, necessarily even have to land clean and to be able to hurt you. He's a reactive type fighter. He has them quick reflexes and can seem to see shots come in at times. He's got a good jab as well. He's got good timing and, like I say, a nice compact guard. So he's not, when he is picking his shots and being patient early, he's not easy to hit. And with that compact guard, unless that does open up the more aggressive he gets, if you can keep that compact guard, it would be interesting to see where Bohachuk can find openings and gaps. He's efficient early on, Ortiz Jr. as well. He doesn't really waste much. He cuts off the ring very nicely. I think he plants his feet typically at quite good points. He doesn't seem to respect any of his opponents, which might be a bad thing for against Bohachuk. He might be overlooking him, but it doesn't seem, and doesn't ever really want to respect his opponents. He's got good hand speed in general, a lot quicker than I think that Bohachuk's. He can fight in mid-range or in close, and he sneaks shots in very nicely as well when you won't necessarily see them coming. And I suppose negatives about him, I think experience going the rounds he's not really had much of, and I believe the furthest distance he's gone is the 9th round, so he's really not had that much experience going into the later rounds. And so I think we'll have to wait and see conditioning wise how well conditioned he is. I mean, Bohachuk's not really that known to be able to do it either, but did it really well against Mendoza. So we'll have to wait and see how Ortiz Jr. can fare. He's affected also by illness as well. That could also still be playing a factor. Obviously, there was talk about that a little while ago, and he's moved up in weight since then, but that still could play a factor. You don't necessarily know. Like I say, he really hasn't been around since then, and that could still be playing a factor. He could be overconfident. I think that's when he's been hurt in the past because he's come in overconfident, over aggressive, and that's when problems can open up. He can perhaps force the fight and forget his defense a little bit, perhaps force him to respond at the same time. If he gets caught with a shot, then he pretty much kind of switches that mode, that aggressive mode where he has to respond back with a shot, and that's not really the best of modes to be always switching into if he does get caught, because I think Bohachuk probably will land on him at some point. He also can headhunt a little bit at times, but like I say, when he has that excellent body work and when he uses it, it's really good. And like I say, it would be interesting to see how he deals with being put on the back foot if he does. Ortiz Jr. is the favourite for his fight, and I think that Ortiz Jr. will win via TKO in round 8. If he goes to the body, if he stays disciplined, early on especially, and then he goes to the body, I think he will really find a weakness there. Bohachuk is going to be tough. I think it's going to take a little bit to work him down and to work him out at the same time. But I think Ortiz Jr.'s speed can be too much, and them sneaky shots that he gets in can be too much. And then in general, I believe he could get that stoppage win, which I do think would be a very big statement win for him. And then really, like I said, will set him up for a big fight in which I'd love to see. Obviously, Zhu's just been ordered to fight Metazaliev for that IBF title, so the winner of that could be made. That would be an entertaining one. Or, like I mentioned, Crawford or Ennis. Even Spence Jr., Fundora, there's big names around the division at the moment, so I think there is definitely going to be a big fight if Ortiz Jr. wins this one next. But yeah, that's it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like if you didn't, like this, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.